This is a public smush announcement. Do not harass anyone I mention in this video. Alright, let's begin. Alright, welcome back to the channel. I'm sorry I haven't uploaded in about a month. I just had to study for finals. But anyways, today's episode will be on the song Don't Touch My Pizza. But more so how it embodies everything about the current state of the y2k community that I hate. I know I'm already late to this topic, but I don't really care that much. So let's just begin. So it was about a week ago that I realized something that had been bugging me for a while. I was searching for an Impractical Jokers clip to send to my friends, and while I was doing it, I found this. I'd been aware of the song for a little bit, but all I thought of it was that it was corny and trying too hard to feel retro. So I listened to the song, and dear God, I got secondhand embarrassment from it. I felt like Homelander in that one scene in the movie theater. And then I realized what about it that was bugging me. Not only is the song extremely generic and annoying, some of the people who unironically enjoy this just so happen to be some of the most annoying people I've seen on the internet. And it's not just Don't Touch My Pizza. These absolute pinheads that were born in 2009 think they know absolutely everything about the time because they have a Newgrounds account and play Forsaken. At least I actually used to do research while making my videos meant to look old. But for most of these LARPers, they do little to no research on the time. Let me explain it like this. This style is like if you took a Twitter user from 2021 and described the 2000s/2010s over the phone. That's about it. Yet a lot of people seem to like the style, and the people who don't often get a lot of hate for it. I think that most people who like this quote-unquote retro, quote-unquote silly type of stuff don't get why anyone would be annoyed by it. People just assume that because the audio is bit crushed and it references the epic face, then it must be 1000% accurate and amazing, and anyone who dislikes it just needs to let people enjoy things. So I think it would be a good idea for me to lay out all my problems with this quote-unquote quirky retro style, and why Don't Touch My Pizza represents every problem that I list. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of an unorganized rant. But first, we need to set the stage. So, the internet in its earlier days was very different from how it is today. Most everyday consumers thought of it as little more than a fad that would die off in a few years, and the majority of homes wouldn't even have broadband internet until 2008. Most of the people who use the internet had very niche interests, which they could talk about with anyone else from any place in the world. The early internet was more of a large collection of personal websites, forums, and chat rooms, and more evenly spread out, with most sites only having relatively small fan bases, where you were more likely to recognize people or make new friends, a sort of World Wide Web. This gave the early internet more of a Wild West feel, a place where anything went. Most people back then just used the internet for fun, or to spread stuff that they themselves created, and this was part of the original appeal to the internet. But as time went on, more and more people flocked to the internet, and eventually it became something completely different from what it used to be, with the late 2010s in particular being a point in time when people started to realize how corporatized and stale the internet had become. Many of these people began to form small communities meant to emulate the internet of the 2000s and late 90s. And for a while, the communities stayed relatively small. It stayed out of petty drama and fighting, until of course the rest of the internet found out, which made everything exponentially worse. After YouTube decided to make the absolute galaxy brain move of promoting Cooper2723's videos, I made a video on him to everyone and their mom, while simultaneously sandbagging Michael P's channel, A ton of people who had gotten tired of the current internet had migrated to these communities. Notably afterwards, with a sharp increase of new people, there was a sharp decrease in the quality of 2000s-esque content, which was amplified by YouTube deciding to promote Duber43, a channel which I don't even know I could call 2000s based considering how dogshit his videos are. I mean, if you took any of these videos and slapped on a name like Gooner1874 with 38 subscribers, I don't think anyone would notice. But for some reason, he ended up getting 580,000 subscribers, which is concerning considering how a lot of actually good YouTubers are only slightly ahead of him, or even far behind him in terms of subscribers. But the point is, a lot of new people who were introduced to this type of content that very inaccurately portrayed the 2000s, which caused the community as a whole to be worse off. This was just one of the ways in which the mainstream internet was introduced to y2k style content, with games like Friday Night Funkin' reviving interest in Newgrounds, and we all know how god-awful that fandom is. So many of these people decided that they might as well try and make their own 2000s-esque content, and many of these people were attracted to the more silly type done by Duber. So what happens next? Well, a ton of people tried to mix everything they know about the 2000s, which isn't much, with the whole silly style, and ended up creating an unholy offspring, which, for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna call Sillycore. When Sillycore was first given mainstream internet attention, I really didn't care that much, and went about my day. But then it started to appear in other corners of the internet, and it became something that you could not ignore. And the more I saw of it, the more I got annoyed with it, because not only had there been a lot more drama happening after Sillycore shined a light onto the y2k community, but the quality of the content in the community took a nosedive, and most were willing to forget or turn a blind eye to any sort of flaws. Why is this? I don't know, but I predict that this video will get a ton of dislikes because I'm pointing them out. Or if I actually make any error in the video, then I'll acknowledge it. But anyways, I think that's enough background context. This video is like 7 minutes long already, so now we should actually start with this part on the song. So the first and probably most obvious problem when it comes to these types of retro fans is that when they attempt to make content meant to emulate the 2000s/2010s, they usually just make it as silly as possible, or make the video extremely low quality, and that's about it. Or, if they made a Roblox game in said style, the creator will usually just make everything in a stud texture and reference the subspace strip mine 5,000 times before they act like it's some sort of elaborate inside joke you must not get. No, we've seen this exact art style 5,000 times before. I'm paraphrasing Juk99 here, who made a video on the style that went into more depth, which was not received very well. But the point is, they don't actually put in much effort into making their content look like it was from the 2000s or 2010s, preferring to simply take the easy way out by making everything quirky. So the creator of this video decided to take that route and make their video look even remotely old, which is to use Sillycore, and add so many vibrant colors that your eyes want to jump out of your skull and off a bridge. Don't get me wrong, I am by no means an artist, and the animations probably took a few hours to make, but if you want to make yourself known as a quote-unquote retro artist, maybe you should, I don't know, use actual animations from the time period as a reference, and don't big crush your music to Margaret Thatcher's current location and back. It just ends up making the video more superficial feeling. Then the animation feels like it's trying too hard to stand out, and when everyone's trying to stand out, nothing will, and it'll eventually make itself seem generic and unoriginal. But whatever, this isn't that bad, it just gets annoying very quickly. Speaking of annoying, let's see how the fans respond. So what I had just explained was originally my only problem with the song. I wrote it out on a comment and waited for the replies. After a couple days, they had all poured in to defend the song at any cost, including this absolute wall of text that claims I'm somehow defending harassment against the creator. and this one right here claiming the same thing. Now, to give you a little more backstory, about 2 months ago, a bunch of Instagram Reel users found the song and thought it was cringe. They reacted by going to the video and typing out a ton of comments along the lines of TS Loki Buns NGLTS PMO in whatever language that may be. But I've also heard that there were many who sent death threats to the creator, which I haven't found any screenshots of. But if it did happen, that is something you should obviously never do. And if you did send death threats, you're an even bigger problem than others I'll talk about in this video. Well, besides the pedophiles, but we're getting to that part. But it still doesn't change the fact that there were a ton of people who defended the song like it was their newborn son, to the point where any video making fun of it would be met with a ton of criticism from large swaths of fans, rushing to protect the oh so precious, silly song that's totally not extremely generic, acting like a video with saying the vocals are bad is the worst thing they've ever seen. Now, let me say something real quick. I don't like Instagram Reels, and I don't like slime talk. Considering the only person I ever knew who was part of that crowd looked like Curious George and bragged about how his ancestors owned slaves, this guy right here, it shows you that they're not the best people. And if anyone actually sent death threats to the creator, then I feel bad for him. But considering how 99% of the hate was the exact same joke over and over, you got this mad over that, tells me exactly what I need to know about the sillycore community, because now anyone can get placed on a pedestal for relatively mediocre and generic content. For example, this channel right here got 21,000 subscribers in 4 days with only a single video. It was 1 minute long and got 63,000 views. Now compare this to a relatively similar sized channel, Adrian Gasly, with 39,000 subscribers from 72 videos over a span of 13 years. Today, Gasly only has a fraction of this channel's popularity, with a whole lot more effort put into their videos. But I guess you can't criticize them for that, because if you do that, you're just a jealous hater who can't let people enjoy things. When you get to that point, you end up driving attention away from actually unique creators in favor of these quote-unquote unique creators that are incredibly generic and have very little to offer, because we've seen this song and dance 300 times before. And the people in this creator's fan base do this with everything. Oh, you don't like the fact that Roblox is either pay to win or hyper-stimulation, silly, quirky games? You're just an ableist who won't let autistic people have fun. It basically just shuts down any sort of valid argument by accusing you of harassing the people who make this type of content, rather than accept the fact that maybe they might have some sort of a problem within their community. And speaking of problems within their community, alright, so let me ask you this. If all of these sillycore fans loved the 2000s and 2010s so much, and there weren't nearly as many groomers back then as there are now, why does the community have an extremely high concentration of gooners? This right here is something that actually concerns me. Unlike the annoying fans and annoying art style, this part is actually very alarming. And again, it's not all of the people in the scene that are gooners, but it's certainly way too many for games mostly played by kids. And before you accuse me of making false allegations and trying to ruin lives, maybe acknowledge the fact that the creator of Don't Touch My Pizza retweeted this image, which is certainly something I would call extremely sketchy, especially because it depicts an animal, which is really teetering on the line of being illegal. And once again, it's not just the creator, but a lot of these sillycore fans that always end up having some very degenerate stuff going on. But it's not like every single lobby and something evil will happen has 17 different gooner avatars. You just have to let people enjoy things. If you don't, you're basically an ableist. It makes a lot of sense that the person who made this comment also just so happened to make this. And it shows how they'd rather try and paint anyone who calls them out as the bad guy, rather than formulate any sort of argument or come up with a solution. All it does is turn people against you, It's quite similar to a kid plugging up his ears when he hears about something he doesn't want to. You know, for such cute and kind people, you sure do hate when anyone disagrees with you. What's that? Do I hear the sound of an annoyed fan? Of course I do. They typed out an entire essay and called the uploader an ableist. You know, if I had a nickel for every time I saw someone call the uploader an ableist, I'd have 3 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it tells me a whole lot more about the commenters than the uploader, especially since most of these accounts end up making pictures or liking pictures that would probably get me on a watch list just by looking at them. And I'm honestly surprised how few people have talked about this, considering how prevalent they have gotten. But I guess because a small percentage of people who didn't like the song sent death threats, now anyone who makes fun of the song in any way, shape, or form gets angry comments condescending them. And let me ask those same people who I know are watching this right now, have you ever stopped to wonder that maybe people don't like your style for a reason? Have you ever thought that the sheer amount of gooners and groomers in the same spaces as kids is in any way very unsafe? And have you ever thought that maybe if you listened rather than scolding anyone who disagrees with you makes people resent you? Because I guess we've gotten to the point where if you joke about the wrong person, suddenly it's a sin against the great Ninja Muffin 99 and you must pay with your life. Oh wait, he's a pedophile too. And the comment section is doing absolutely nothing but deflect, because of course they are.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
I find it ironic how so many of these people who hate how Roblox is currently oversaturated and goonified and wish to return to old Roblox are themselves part of the problem that makes current Roblox oversaturated and goonified. Maybe instead of closing your eyes and ears to pretend like your fan base is an amazing utopia with 0 problems and calling out people who call out said problems ableist and brain rotted, you actually do something to help the community? Because we use the internet too. Maybe report the people wearing gooner avatars that have no shame. Maybe report developers that have been outed as degenerates and games made by said degenerates, rather than basing your entire personality off of them. For game developers, maybe use tools like RBLX score to prevent avatars like these from showing up in games. And for animators, maybe just listen to what I've been saying, because the way I see it, the internet is not what it used to be. The sort of y2k atmosphere was originally made to escape to hour-long video essays on some irrelevant shit that nobody cares about, but now even that's been ruined. Today, the very same people who want to get away from the oversaturated internet are actively contributing to an oversaturated and worse community. So to answer the question they always love to ask, I couldn't enjoy my things and not enjoy their things, so why should I let you enjoy your things? Okay, frankly, I went a little bit off the hinges in the last part, but other than that, that's about it for this video. I never intended it to be 18 minutes long, but at the same time, I felt I had to explain the appeal to the old internet. Remember not to harass anyone I mentioned in this video. Be sure to subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. And in Vsauce's words, as always, thanks for watching.
Flint and steel. Flint and steel. Flint and steel. Flint and
Chicken jockey.
Flint and steel. Flint and steel.
I'm Steve.
Flint and steel. Flint and steel. Flint and steel. Flint and
The nether.
Flint and